Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. Today we're going to decode Trump tweets. We're going to start on the tweets of July 1. Today is July 2nd. If you've been following our videos, and some of you have called and emailed, asked where are the tweet decodes. The last tweet decode we did was on June 28th. It was entitled Dragon Energy. So you haven't missed anything, but we have been extremely busy in the conclave. I hear you guys you're just knee deep in all kinds of stuff you're finding, Thomas.
Well, that's true, and especially Americans for Innovation and Michael McKibben, CEO of Leader Technologies. They've just been popping out so much new stuff, showing us deeper and deeper connections to how the elections are rigged, and they're rigged through Britain.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable what we're finding out. So sorry for the few days of off air, but we're back, and we're going to start out with this tweet. The liberal left, also known as the Democrats, want to get rid of ICE, who do a fantastic job, and want open borders. Crime would be rampant and uncontrollable. Make America great again. Thomas, what say you?
I say he's absolutely right. Look at the Portland riot. Look at the people out on the street saying that they want to stop ICE, and then they also want to stop all police. They want to stop all law enforcement. In other words, anarchy, as he had pointed out before. I'm so glad he used that word, anarchy, anarchy, anarchy. But it's a small group of people compared to all those who now are supporting Trump, which is much more than the statistics that you actually see. All those polls add 10, 20 points to those. We know that from the election. So what we're dealing with here is, yes, there is a far fringe left that is going so far left that the mid-roaders are walking away.
Next tweet, a big week, especially with our numerous victories in the Supreme Court. Heading back to the White House now, focus will be on the selection of a new Supreme Court justice. Exciting times for our country. Economy may be stronger than it has ever been.
Notice he says victories in the Supreme Court. Wow. Victories. Yes, victories. He's counting another one who's going to drop any minute. We know who she is. And another one who, can barely see or hear, so he may go too. And pretty soon it could be a rigged Supreme Court. And I say rigged because it's fake justice. And he knows that he's participating in this bias, this incredible partisanship.
Well, like John Roberts, he made a ruling on the Facebook case, and he actually owned Facebook stock. Tell me that isn't corrupt.
Well, it's corrupt from the moment that they're chosen because they know whether they're left, right, or middle of the road. And with Kennedy going, the only swing vote that they could count on, that's the only thing that kept it. Why would they even consider a case? They already know the partisanship. They already know the bias. They go, oh, it's 5-4. We don't even need to present the case. Now it's going to be 6-3 or 7-2. And that's the beauty of it. And that's why he says multiple victories, because look how the Democratic Party, as he just pointed out, the party of casting aspersions, allegations, and accusations. That's all they do. They have no planks in their presentation. They have nothing they stand for, and all they really do is continue the partisanship, continue the old system. They're trying to grease a rusty old system, and it isn't working. Oh, did I call her a rusty old system? I'm sorry.
Let me say, I was very happy to hear the president say that the government as a whole, as a bureaucracy, needs a major overhaul. It hasn't been really overhauled in hundreds of years. It's still operating in today's technical world the way it did 200 years ago.
Good old bulldog Mike Mulvaney is redoing the entire federal agencies, all of them. And hopefully he is going to remove the linchpin, the keystone, the senior executive service, and make sure that they exit.
Well, did you see the list of 17 folks that Devin Nunes wants to call in for hearings? We took that list, and if folks remember, I always keep a link in the description box, and you can tap that on there, and you can find all these other delicious things we talk about. But what we did is we took that list, and we compared it to the Plum books to see just who is SES. And the chart is just amazing. Come on, when is the mainstream media, when is fake news, Fox News, going to start reporting on senior executive service?
Yes, these probably 4 dozen people that are all mentioned in the conspiracy and the covering up of the emails scandal, which is really espionage, and now covering up of Imran Awan scandal, same scandal. All this stuff comes back to the same group of people. And so once those are out and they are no longer in control, we can move forward, and what we call the shadow government is taken out of the government because they're the ones who are the bureaucratic status quo who make sure that no matter who comes and goes, they stay and they continue the same rat lines that go to Serco and Crown agents and OPEC and USAID and, this corruption that Trump is busting every single day. So the winning in the Supreme Court just demonstrates how absolutely ridiculous our system is and that it does need a complete overhaul. But when you're looking at the appointment of Supreme Court justices, it's absurd because he, of course, is going to place a conservative Republican there. I mean, that's his job. That's the game they play. That's the power of the executive.
You know what? I want to get beyond that whole thing with the conservative Republican because those words don't mean anything to me. I want to see somebody in there who is a nationalist, who wants to protect our borders, our cultures, our language, our country, because we know that these globalists run around as Democrats and Republicans. So Republicans, you take someone like Mitt Romney, he's a globalist. I don't want him either.
Absolutely. And we need a new agenda, and the agenda needs to be the Trump agenda. The Trump Triumph Party is what I'd like to call it, not the conservative Republicans. It's the Trump Triumph Party, and it's going to go beyond the parties. And as he stays in office in his second term, which we predict, of course, that it will, in fact, transform the entire bipartisan nonsense, which is, in fact, just a theater game. It's just play acting.
And one other thing before we get to the next tweet, speaking of Mitt Romney, the research team found a direct relationship between Mitt Romney and these voting machines that are tied to George Soros, the Crown, and are as corrupt as all get out. Even, where they were used originally was in Venezuela.
Smartmatic is the British way that they control elections throughout the world, and they control 17 states, as well as they controlled the software that controls most of the rest of the election machines. So literally, Mitt Romney's son was in control of elements of Smartmatic, which are the very election machines which he just used in his primary. And it's absurd that he won in that primary. We assumed it was the money that he paid people out of the back of his car as he went to every single district. That might have helped, but it's obvious that it is the election machines.
Yes.
And we've known this, the Diebold machines, the Smartmatic machines, it's actually the proprietary software inside, which goes back to Lord Malloch.
Yes, and that is where we're going to be taking everyone in further audio, so stay tuned with us because what we're showing you and the connections to the Crown are just astounding. And of course, we bring you indictable evidence. We don't bring you conspiracy theories. The next tweet is congratulations to Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador on becoming the next president of Mexico. I look very much forward to working with him. There is much to be done that will benefit both the United States and Mexico.
Okay, that takes real decoding. What is he saying? He's laughing, and he's saying, oh, I'm so glad you got elected because now you make me look really, really good. You just got many more Republicans. You just brought many more votes over to my side because you are a radical leftist Marxist communist who the first plank in his presentation campaign was that all drug cartel leaders have amnesty. Well, those drug cartel leaders during this particular election shot and killed 134 people, politicians, so that those positions could be opened up to their cartel supporting politicians that they were wanting in that office. And there were 681 other politicians who were shot during this election. Okay, so that doesn't count the journalists who were shot and killed. So we're talking about over 1,000 people were shot and killed during this election so that this communist could come to power. And the second plank that he has, or somewhere down in his planks, he says that it is a civil right of Mexicans to be able to cross the border and go into America, get benefits, and he has a special name for it. Get the money that you make here and send it back to Mexico. That's one of the planks that he ran on, was an invasion of America. Read it, folks. He ran on these planks. It's public knowledge. He told everyone they were going to get everything. The same kind of thing that the socialists, Bernie Sanders, like socialist.
Oh, Bernie's not far enough left now.
He's gone back to being a Democrat now, and there'll be other socialists who will run, like that.
No,
Cortez.
Because that party is going way left. In fact, when I looked at Obrador's platform, I said, well, now, this is a lot what the liberals here in America want, and I see a win-win situation. Why don't they just move south of the border, and then they'll have everything that they want?
Obrador getting elected, his platform is a direct statement of war. It's a declaration of war against America. Now, we've been telling you that war is going on. In fact, the only people we're at war with is an economic war with China and a war with Mexico. And people won't take this seriously, but it's what's going on. Listen to what Trump is saying. Without a southern border, it's nothing but crime, crime, crime. It's nothing but MS-13. Remember, MS-13 was invited into this country by Obama. Obama's crimes are coming out every single day. He is an abomination. It's disturbing. And all Trump has to do is say, I'm in a war against the anarchists. I'm in a war for the rule of law. I'm in a war against unlawfulness. That's what he says. And he is. There is a civil war going on right now with the far left becoming fascists more and more, and imitating what they see happening very specifically in Mexico with Obrador. We are going to see now that Trump is going to make it perfectly clear that we're in a war with Mexico.
Wow. Well, then that explains the next retweet, Thomas. It was from Homeland Security, and it read, today, DHS, CBP, and ICE Gov will be sharing stories of the brave men and women who put their lives on the line every day with the sole objective of protecting our nation. Make sure to follow to see stories that have not been widely reported.
Remember, the resistance against ICE hacked ICE, or ICE, black hats and ICE, gave out the home numbers and put all ICE people and their families and children in harm's way. So as we are protecting children who are being trafficked across the border in the war with Mexico across our southern border, ICE members' children are being targeted by the far, far left. Now, who are these people? Every single organization that I checked that marched in and then turned into the riot in Portland, every single one I checked on the left was supported by the Open Societies Institute, Foundation, and its many other names, Tides Foundation, so on and so forth. In other words, George Soros money. There are people out there who are leading it, all being paid, and then there are those who are just silly and putting on, hats and going out and thinking that they're saving children. You need to save the children who are being human trafficked. If those people would simply not be acting out of disinformation, but they'd actually do some homework, then they would understand what's going on. But they don't. They listen to simply what the mainstream media is giving. And that is nothing more, as we now know, 97% negative attack against our sitting president. That could be considered nothing less than MSM, mainstream media's attempt at a coup d'etat. So we are in a war. We're in a civil war. And that is the Second American Revolution, trying to finish the First American Revolution and getting away from Britain. Remember, Reuters provides our news. Who's Reuters? That is the Rockefeller family. They bought Reuters. Who's Associated Press? That was the Rockefeller family. That's Britain. That's the city of London. So when we say the Brits, we're talking about the real forces that create the mainstream media. This is no joke. It's no conspiracy. We've proven it to you. Go to the search box, plug in any word we say, and you will get more information than you ever wanted to see to prove what we're saying.
When you say go to the search box, what Thomas is saying, if you go to any of our sites, and especially aimfortruth.org, the site is so massive. If you put in a search word you're looking for, so put in Dick Cheney, And then all the articles that we've written about that will have Dick Cheney's name come up, and that's a great way to navigate the site. The next tweet is welcoming Prime Minister Mark Rutte to the Netherlands, and there is a video attached to it.
Well, you see, the Netherlands that's the Dutch East India Company. Those are the Lombards, the Hanseatic League, the bankers of Germany, particularly Hamburg, who moved down to Amsterdam and throughout Holland, through the Netherlands, and then they spread over to the city of London. So what you have there is the ancient triangulation of power through bankers, and those are the bankers who came to America and still control our banks. But what he came to do was to say, I'm getting in here to have a bilateral agreement with you, Mr. Trump, because I listen to what you say. You're coming to the EU. You don't like us. You know it's the Soros nation. You know it's the European Union of Soros. So the people who really want the deals and are doing the deals come and do bilateral agreements with him, between Trump and them, because that's all he's going to do. He's not going to do group deals, folks. He said this the other day. I'm not doing it. You know, he's going to talk to people. If he has a relationship with you, you're going to get a deal. He's going to get a deal, and you're both going to walk away fine. So what did the Rutte say? He said, "Oh, we already had the deal. We gave you 825,000 jobs, and you gave us 250,000 jobs, and it's about jobs. But remember, for them, look at the question of, do they have a problem with the migrants? Have you seen a single thing happen in Holland?
Thomas, I'm growing very suspicious of these countries that remind Americans that we're good friends, like the Brits. They always say, we're real good friends with America. And what we're finding out is, no, we're not. They're actually huge enemies of the United States and have been taking us down ever since we first landed here. So that is a big fat lie that we all need to wake up to. And when I heard Rutte say, oh, and we've been friends for 400 years, everything in me said, okay, you control us. How?
Through the Dutch East India Company, fighting with the British East India Company that split our country, that later split it into the Civil War and still splits it. And so people don't understand this little teensy tiny country of Holland and the power that it has, but they are the major bankers. They basically control the flow of diamonds, of precious gems, of certain types of things, especially in the finance world, that we can't even imagine. For instance, CT Corporation is solely owned by Walter Kluis, who is in Holland. 90-some%. It used to be practically 100% of corporations in America are registered through Holland and pay dues to exist, and only are allowed to exist because a little company in Holland, a little country, controls our corporations in America. People don't understand. You have to go back and see the genesis of things. The Dutch East India Company was at war with the British East India Company. The Dutch brought the slaves. The British brought taxes, banks, the northern thing, industry. The southern brought these horrible things, and then they fought over things like, believe it or not, sugar, salt, molasses, tea, and then what controlled it was slavery. So when you say Holland, you say the most evil country probably in Western history, the very country that really institutionalized slavery coming to the West. And when I love the Dutch people, matter of fact, they're some of the finest people you'll meet in Europe. But
look, we always say the people are great in these countries, but the corporatocracy that's running the world must be dismantled, and we must call out the evil that it is.
Yes, because they don't have problems. Do you ever hear
a single
problem about anything in the Netherlands?
No.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Many Democrats are deeply concerned about the fact that their leadership wants to denounce and abandon the great men and women of ICE, thereby declaring war on law and order. These people will be voting for Republicans in November, and in many cases, joining the Republican Party. I love this tweet so much, Thomas, because since the beginning of June, the American intelligence media have been running a campaign that Democrats can be for Trump, because Trump represents a new type of Republican out there. And I'm so glad to see the walkaway movement is growing. It's just huge now. People are like, I don't have to stay on this limited thought plantation anymore.
No way. And we've been saying this from the beginning. He has come to instill the rule of law. And that means all of the corruption now is going crazy because the light's shining on it, and they are mold and scum and parasites, and light kills them. So they hate that. They're vampires. They can't stand light. And all he's doing is being a beacon of lawfulness that is just shining down on the corruption. And he has basically now branded the Democratic Party as the unlawful party, as the criminals.
He calls them the extreme Democrats.
Yes, he has the extremist open border Democrats. And now he's called them anarchists. And now he's called them unlawful. And now he says he's in a war against them. And he says that anybody who wants the rule of law will come on over and vote Republican. So in other words, they are feeding him the best branding that he could possibly ever create to make the other side into a perfect picture of who they are.
But the Republicans who are rhinos and globalists, they're going to find themselves locked out of this new Republican Party. We don't want their kind. And that includes Mitt Romney. Okay, you know how I am about that. Now, the next tweet is Crazy Maxine Waters, said by some to be one of the most corrupt people in politics, is rapidly becoming, together with Nancy Pelosi, the face of the Democrat Party. Her ranting and raving, even referring to herself as a wounded animal, will make people flee the Democrats.
This is a person who supported and actually came out in public and said she supported the murder of people, white people, in the riots, in the areas where she represents, but she doesn't live. She lives in a multi-million-dollar home, and she doesn't even live quite even near where she represents. And what does she represent? Well, that area has seen riots. She's basically been an inciter of riots, and now she's attempting to incite riots again. What's new? And because she's black, she's not being called out, and it's disgusting. She should be arrested for inciting a riot. And she's proud of it. She's now not only doubled down, she says she's tripled down. And she's come out and says, yes, go and attack his member of his any member of his administration whatsoever. Attack them, go to their homes, do whatever. She is promoting violence. She is a horrible person and thinks she can get away with it under the idea of civil rights. Civil rights for who? Civil rights for anarchists, for Antifa, for Black Lives Matter? Yeah, that's who she wants civil rights for, MS-13.
Well, when I see them thrashing about like this, I really see the death rattle of the Democrat Party. They don't have the funding. They don't have any good young candidates. All they have are the same old, same old. And now what they espouse is just complete fracturing of the United States. No, this is not an American party anymore. The next one is I interviewed 4 very impressive people yesterday. On Monday, I'll be announcing my decision for Justice of the United States Supreme Court.
Well, I only have one thing to read between the lines on that one, and it's too bad Democrats. I mean, you want to play this game of partisanship where you always vote as a group, like you're some kind of group soul, group consciousness, like an animal, like a tribe.
They're more like a group reptile.
It's pathetic that we play these political games and that there's no independence of anyone once they get to D.C. because why? The U.S. Chamber of Commerce provides most of their lobbying money, which then they give to them. They dole it out through the party leadership. That's the reason that people who are the head of the parties are usually the most corrupt in the party. That's usually the standard. Who is the oldest and most corrupt that knows the rat lines that are going to keep them flowing and make sure that money goes to the very people? Oh, I'm going to get really upset in our next broadcast, by the way, because I'm thinking of those very people who vouched for Imran Awan, who have also been charged with sexual assault over and over again, that we have paid literally millions of dollars for these people to assault anyone they see on Capitol Hill sexually. And the U.S. taxpayers pay for it, and then they bring in Pakistani spies, and then they rig the court systems.
Not the hearing, the
plea deal.
The plea deal for Imran Awan is just disgusting. All right, the next tweet is the economy is doing perhaps better than ever before, and that's prior to fixing some of the worst and most unfair trade deals ever made by any country. In any event, they are coming along very well. Most countries agree that they must be changed, but nobody ever asked.
That's because they all had group deals. In the old days, the White House, all they needed was to create an alliance. So they got some of their crooked friends in other countries. Oh, you want to have an alliance? Good. Okay, let's have it over a cup of tea. And then they create, a UN resolution to bomb Iraq, or they create whatever. Look at Obama. What did he have? What kind of permissions did he have for bombing 7 countries? None that I know of. So what really is going on here? This just demonstrates that Trump has dismantled the global New World Order. It was so close to happening. And by the way, we said from the beginning, Mr. Trump, please dismantle the World Trade Organization. Again, you're hearing rumors and rumors about it, and then he says, it's no good. No, they treat us wrong. Well, the rumors are because he's already indicated by saying they treated us wrong. Oh, always. We got into group deals, whether it be the attempted TPP or the attempted TIPP or the NAFTA or the Iran deal. Any deal that we ever got into with multiple nations, we got the short end of the stick. We got ripped off. So what he's saying is, no, bilateral deals. I'm not doing a deal with the European Union because you guys don't agree. It's fake. You're not elected. You're basically a rogue Soros organization that is now no free speech in Europe anywhere because the 10 fact-checking and truth centers, the Truth Ministry of Europe is now under Soros's control through a number of companies that he owns, along with Odemeyer and others, but him particularly. So what Trump is doing, he is dismantling all of that. There's not going to be any more of that. And if people would sit back, in 6 months, there won't be any tariffs. There'll be no tariffs. There'll be no trade barriers. Why would there be any? Why? Why would you ever have that?
Well, of course, it's a mask that the globalists have put on what their corruption of what they've been doing. It was to weaken America, strengthen other countries, put us at a disadvantage, take all of our jobs, destroy our manufacturing. And so once you awaken to what's really going on and you get rid of the words they use to call it and see what it really is, the tariffs is just an unnatural border between countries. And so if you want to destroy, get rid of borders, we don't want the borders destroyed in the 3D world, let's say, in the spatial world. We need to get those borders nice and secure. In fact, we even talk around here that we need at the southern border 2 walls and a moat. At a higher level, we can join together in a form of community, of world community, but it exists at a higher dimension. So we're talking about free trade. We're talking about a free internet where people all over the world can communicate with each other. These are the borders and boundaries that need to come down, not the ones that we have between our physical countries.
Exactly right. What you mentioned at first is the redistribution of wealth. That's all that was. That was Obama socialism, letting every country in the world suck off of the teat of the American people. That's all that was.
Well, that had to happen if the globalists were going to have their new world order because America had to be weakened.
And the second part of what you said is true, in that we have to think of the following analogy. Do you think we can really have one world anything when we have people who think that it's okay to rape children? To kill people with a knife, to stab them to death because of ideology?
Or wrap your women up in cloth and don't let them drive? I mean, really?
To hide, to call them possessions, Sharia law, technically, if you go back to Wahhabism or Salafism, clearly says that a woman is your possession. Period. They're not an entity. They can't be a citizen. They can't vote. They can't go. And you cover them up, not for modesty. Those poor people who've been taught that. No, you cover them up to leave them. They're your possession. Yeah, they're your possession. You're leaving them powerless. And, well, that will be something for another day. Let's move on to the next tweet, if you don't mind. When we have an infestation of MS-13 gangs in certain parts of our country, who do we send to get them out? ICE. They are tougher and smarter than these rough criminal elements that bad immigration laws allow into our country. Dems do not appreciate the great job they do. And then he puts November.
NOV, period. Now, just as a reminder to people that the ICE stands for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, but it's funny, anytime I see ICE used in this way lately, I see the words that we sometimes put in our cell phones when, if you have an accident, you want to make sure that your loved one is called first, you might call them ICE in case of an emergency. Well, ICE has become that here. This is an emergency. We need them.
We're under attack, folks. This is literally an invasion. MS-13 was an invasion that was encouraged by Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. They want chaos, and they want those MS-13 members to go out and vote 13 times. They literally give them, through fake justice and through our pathetic immigration system and the laws concerning it, they give them certain rights as a citizen. But believe this or not, 445,000 people are waiting for their court date who came across our southern border, and we have to provide all of them with a lawyer. Think of that, folks. Why are we providing literally MS-13 gang members as they cross the southern border with a lawyer to represent them, and during the time that their case is that they have to wait, they're free? Matter of fact, in some cases, Obama was flying them. That's the reason of the massive amount of them in New York and Manhattan and Long Island. They were flown there. There's pictures of the entire plane being filled with MS-13 gang members being distributed throughout the country. That was Obama's soldiers on the ground creating Al Sharpton's attempted complete riots, summer of riots. For 2 or 3 years in a row. Summer of riots, there's going to be summer of riots. And then they predicted all this, these problems. And that's why they would need the Strong Cities Initiative. And that's why Obama signed 3 peace treaties, the small arms peace treaty, Strong Cities peace treaty, and brought in UN forces, UN equipment to every major city in America. That's what happened during Jade Helm 2015. It was an invasion of UN equipment and getting ready for UN forces to come in to take away our guns, which has happened in every nation that didn't do it willingly. They literally sent in the United Nations peacekeeping troops to take weapons away from countries that had signed this small arms treaty agreement. So they take away the small arms, but they don't take away the missiles or the nuclear bombs or the jets or any of that stuff. Oh, no. They're going to take away the people's right to defend themselves. So that's what was going on. Obama was basically dismantling America through the United Nations, and basically it was socialism.
Well, what are Barry and Big Mike doing up there in the bunkers with Valerie Planet of the Apes Jarrett in Washington? What are they doing?
What the Chicago mob always does, which is extortion, threats, manipulation, money laundering, influence peddling, and then taking over Netflix with Susan Rice.
No. I'm talking about theirs literally in Washington, D.C. What are they doing? Getting ready to jump in and get back into the White House?
Well, they believe that Trump is illegally elected, and all Soros overthrows concerning elections basically say that the election was a fraud. They prove it. And that's because George Soros owns the election machines, and he can prove the fraud by simply manipulating the election machines in other countries. That's how he did it this time.
And not only by himself. Mitt Romney is all tied up into these things, too.
Mitt Romney, members of the Privy Council, Lord Moloch, Jeffrey Patty, who did the propaganda for Strategic Communications Laboratory, Cambridge Analytica, they're all involved in it. But we've pointed out that before, George Soros gave $6 billion illegally to the DNC to get Obama elected twice and an attempt to get Hillary elected. And he was so smug. Just a few nights before the election, they asked him, who's going to win? And he goes, Trump will win the popular vote. But don't worry. And they said, well, why? Well, don't worry about what? Well, Hillary will win the election because I've taken care of the electoral votes.
Yes, he actually said that.
I've taken care of the electoral votes. In other words, he's paid off the Electoral College. And then he said, and I've also taken care of that with paid political announcements. In other words, subliminal, massive billions of dollars worth of subliminal programming, that we were never told of the blitz that happened at the end through who? These weren't even super PACs. This was just him buying influence. And that's what they do.
Okay, the next tweet. How can the Democrats, who are weak on the border and weak on crime, do well in November? The people of our country want and demand safety and security, while the Democrats are more interested in ripping apart and demeaning and not properly funding our great law enforcement.
That's what they ripping apart and demeaning. They're the party of
destruction. They're not creators. They can't do any good. All they can do is destroy.
Correct. They call the Republicans names and say that they aren't all the good things that their virtue signaling say they are. But look into their record and they're not. Look into their lives and they're not. Look into what they do and they're not. And they are not informed. And what they're saying is complete disinformation. So they'd have nothing to do anymore. See, it used to be Democrats would fire off their virtue signaling. The Republicans would stand staunch and say, well, we stand for right and for the rule of law. And then they would go out and do whatever they wanted, the Democrats. And because you had so many illegal aliens voting, because the elections were rigged, because gerrymandering, because of manipulation of the Electoral College and other such things, and especially huge manipulation of the elections through improper financial donations. And now that they legalized it became so bad they legalized it and made super PACs legal. This is just so absurd. Bush's hid it. Romney hid it. They used to have to hide these things in the past, the financial election corruption. Oh, no. Now it's perfectly legal. It's called super PACs. Or the Hillary Victory Fund, which gave Jill McCabe all that illegal money, with Terry McAuliffe manipulating state money to give it to Jill McCabe because his friend Andrew McCabe was getting his boss, Hillary Clinton, out of the Uranium One scandal, out of the email scandal, espionage scandal, out of election rigging and all the other things they were doing. So it's just disturbing, but it is so obvious. All that has to happen is light has to be shown upon these rats, and they will run for the dark.
Okay, many good conversations with North Korea. It's going well. In the meantime, no rocket launches or nuclear testing in 8 months. All of Asia is thrilled. Only the opposition party, which includes the fake news, is complaining. If not for me, we would now be at war with North Korea.
Now, that last statement is very powerful. That means that he knows exactly what we know, that the paradox of progress stated there would be a nuclear war with North Korea. It was set up to do so. He's stating that that would have happened had it not been for him. And the other thing he's stating is the fantastic lies in the mainstream media stating that they have satellite reports, which is pretty interesting because how did the military give them satellite reports? That, in fact, North Korea is increasing their work with uranium and their work with plutonium and their work with their nuclear plants are going on full load and so on and so on. Complete lies. They're dismantling as fast as they can. They're giving us back our bodies. They're working with South Korea. It's a la-la land there, folks. There's going to be no more missiles because they blew up the pads. They blew up the place that they were testing the warheads and the engines. They're blown up.
You know, I mentioned this in an audio before, Thomas, but I'd love to see North Korea be that country where thorium is used for energy. Wouldn't it be amazing that North Korea could lead the world in this new type of energy?
They would become the world leader if they did that. Whoever picks up thorium and then takes all the nuclear plants, and this is what's really amazing. Thorium needs a little bit of nuclear fissile material to begin. After that, it eats it. So the problem that we have with the nuclear waste, it can be eaten by thorium reactors. Thorium reactors can be put into and refitted with normal reactors. So the reactors we have can be turned into thorium reactors very easily, and then they will eat up all of the bad waste that we say we don't even have a plan for. That's a lie. The first country that does this will be the most powerful country.
So if you have connections to North Korea, make sure that they hear this point of view, because it's, as long as we don't use thorium and that there is an artificial suppression in using this energy, as well as many other free energy that's available, we know it's there, but that keeps the price of uranium high. And we know the Clinton corruption with uranium, well, it's actually worldwide, and the price of uranium, it would make uranium useless, or whatever scrap purposes it would be used for. I mean, it would be such a game changer. But of course, the whole petrodollar system would collapse, because what value is oil then when you have to compete with thorium?
Which is practically free energy once it's established. And if you use current facilities and you just retrofit them, there's no problem. And we have enough enriched uranium and plutonium for all of the nuclear weapons we'll need for the rest of humankind's existence. There is no need ever to create plutonium, period.
Okay, the next tweet. Just out that the Obama administration granted citizenship during the terrible Iran deal negotiation to 2,500 Iranians, including to government officials. How big and bad is that? And let me say, make sure to include in there that if any of them went to senior executive service, Obama gave them a pass that they didn't have to answer all the questions on the background security clearance check forms, including nationality.
We're going to go over that with the Imran Awan scandal. But yes, this is the John Kerry. This is one of his payoffs. That's the reason it's come to light. As you heard, Zarif, the head minister for Iran, had said he's going to bring out the blackmail that was used in the Iran-Contra deal behind the scenes, which was John Kerry's deals. Obviously now, we didn't know this. This is shocking, but we can explain it because it's standard. Just like Obama allowed in MS-13 and put them everywhere, we always allow our enemy to come in. That's part of the deal, you see. When you're trying to plan social chaos, then letting your enemy in is crucial. So part of the deal was not only payoffs to John Kerry's son, and Joe Biden's son, which we have yet to see that come to light, but that will be very easy because, you see, China came in and got an oil deal with Iran right after John Kerry did the big Obama-Iran deal. Okay? Let me repeat that. $1.5 billion deal that John Kerry did for his son, Christopher Hines, in China. But nobody knows what that deal really was part of. I'll tell you what it was part of. Both Russia and China came in and muscled out Britain and France and their illegal pipeline heading out the north of Iran, which was supposed to be secret until I just told you. And they muscled them out, and that's the reason they're so upset, because they had such a flow of oil out of there before they became so massively rich by Iranian oil. And so when when China and Russia came in, China gave Iran a whole bunch of money, and that for oil. And that money went to, of course, that is what we were trying to counteract and why John Kerry was there. John Kerry was there to try to get Iran back on track with Europe and not the East, with Russia and China. But they'd already been given so many weapons by Russia and oil deals by China that Iran pushed them out. That's why the Ayatollah Khomeini and Rouhani are probably going to be toppled, because you got the British and the French working overtime to topple them, as they always do in working with a George Soros-type color revolution. Many will die, and then when they change, what will happen is the pipeline will not go north. It'll probably go west first, and then go into Europe. But the point is this is simply over John Kerry's deals. Now, John Kerry allowed 2,500 Iranians to come into this country, probably without security clearances. Yes, some of them probably became immediately senior executive service members to make sure that Iran would get their part of any deal. That's the way you do pay for play. Of course, we know that there were other things paid off, and so John Kerry's son, no doubt, received a huge amount of money under the table, Christopher Hines, when he did the Iran deal, because that also allowed China to come in the back door. And before that, they had done a $1.5 billion deal that nobody wants to say what was transpired. It was Iranian oil. So this is only the tip of the iceberg. We were told by their foreign minister, Zarif, that he's going to let this out if the Iran deal goes down, which was one of the biggest Oh my goodness, it was one of the biggest leveraged scandal, threatening extortion deals in probably history. And John Kerry did it all behind the scene. Remember, John Kerry also signed off on the Trump dossier.
Well, let's not forget, John Kerry was school buddies with Robert Mueller back in the day. I mean, like in secondary school.
Oh, they go back. They're like, they were in diapers together. And yes, they've been protecting each other for years. And that's the reason John Kerry's name has never come up in any of this, has it, except here?
No. Okay, this is the final tweet for this segment. Now that Harley-Davidson is moving part of its operations out of the U.S., my administration is working with other motorcycle companies who want to move into the U.S. Harley customers are not happy with their move. Sales are down 7% in 2017. The U.S. is where the action is.
What did we tell you? We told you, bye-bye Harley. Now, what does he say? Moving part of their company. Oh, part now. And that what did Trump do? Immediately picked up the phone and asked some company to come in and make lookalikes, probably an Eastern company, probably a Japanese company, to come in and make an exact replica of Harley-Davidson in America with Americans, reverse engineering it so you won't know the difference, and bye-bye Harley. It just like he did with Taiwan's industry, the largest industry, the fourth largest tech company in the world. Foxconn, oh, China wants to take you over? Oh, come over here to Wisconsin. We'll just build you. We'll help you get $4.5 billion in tax incentives, and we'll give you the best deal you've ever gotten. And America got the biggest deal, biggest foreign investment in U.S. history.
But you see, what they don't understand is that you have to have a customer. And the United States is the world's biggest customer. And so what Trump is doing is he's just reminding the rest of the world, hey, we're your customer. We buy your stuff. And that's what the globalists didn't want us to understand. They wanted us to think that we were weakened in some way and that we had to put up with this BS from the rest of the world. We don't. We're the customer. And if it means that we have to make our own stuff, we will.
And as Trump took office and looked at the statistics, he just looked at all of them and said, how could all of you have been so stupid? We control, at any moment, 82 to 87% of all the currency in the world. We have 85% self-sufficiency. And we go into debt, $375 billion a year in tariffs and in trade? Wait a second. In 1 year, I can turn this into 100% self-sufficiency in America and just say too bad to the people who wish to rip us off. And they have no power. It's absolutely absurd that America would ever simply open itself to become a parasitic host, which is what it is. And so Trump said, well, wait a second, this is so easy to fix. All we have to do is say, no, you're not going to rip us off anymore, and you're not going to do it in a group like a pack of wolves, and therefore we have to give in because it's a redistribution of wealth. And basically that's what the entire Obama program was. But then it was mysterious that he would bomb his own people, the Muslim Brotherhood. But once you see what happened and all the money made from that, you realize he didn't care about human life. This was about invading all nations.